Joel, the second chapter and the 25th verse says, I will restore to you the years that the swarming locusts have eaten. I used to read that verse and imagine restoration as replacement, a return, a do-over, a chance to get back exactly what was lost. And I understand why it reads that way. The promise is right there. I will restore the years. So naturally, you picture the years coming back. The time, the opportunities, the seasons you lost to struggle or grief or waiting or just surviving. The more I sit with this book, the less I think that's what it means. Some things do not return. Time doesn't. Certain relationships don't. Certain seasons of your life don't. The years themselves are gone, and yet Scripture still promises restoration. So I've had to sit with that. What does that promise actually mean if it doesn't mean reversal? I think many of us are carrying quiet grief about this. The life we thought we would have, the plans that got interrupted, the years spent caring for others or surviving something hard or waiting on something that never came. When we were younger, we imagined life moving in a straight line. Most of us eventually learning it doesn't. There are detours, delays, entire chapters we never planned to write. And if we're honest, some of us are still mourning those chapters. Growing up near the water taught me something about this. I've watched what happens to a shoreline after a storm. It doesn't go back to exactly what it was. The tide reshapes things, land shifts, trees fall, new growth comes up in places you didn't expect. The landscape changes, and yet life continues. Not through reversal, but through renewal. The coast doesn't grieve what the storm took. It just keeps becoming. I think that's closer to what restoration looks like. What I've noticed studying Joel is that he never says the devastation didn't happen. He doesn't erase it or skip over it. He acknowledges it fully, the locust, the loss, the ruin, and then he points beyond it. That feels important to me because healing is not pretending we were never wounded. Wisdom is not pretending we never struggled. Faith is not pretending we never doubted. We did. The story remains. The losses remain. Even some of the feelings remain, but they are no longer the only thing that remains. There are seasons of my life I spent a long time viewing as interruptions, time I thought I had lost, years that felt like they were happening to me instead of for me. I'm not going to tell you that I've resolved all of that. I'm still studying this book, still sitting with these questions, but I am beginning to see those seasons differently. Not as wasted years, as formative ones. Years that taught me compassion I didn't have before. Patience I couldn't have learned along the way. Discernment that only comes from having been through something. Perspective you cannot manufacture. These are lessons I would not have chosen but would not want to lose. Zora Neale Hurston wrote that there are years that ask questions and years that answer. I've been turning that over for a long time because I think most of us can name the years that ask questions, the hard ones, the uncertain ones, the ones where nothing seems to be happening, even as everything was shifting underneath. What's harder is trusting that those years were not empty, that something was growing in them we just couldn't see. Maybe that's what Joel is pointing to. Not that God gives us back the years, but that God reveals those years were never lost to begin with. That grace was at work there too, in the waiting, in the detour, in the chapter we never planned to write. The years were not wasted, not the difficult ones, not the uncertain ones, not even the broken ones. They were part of the becoming, and the becoming, that's the restoration.